Come closer. Turn down the lights. Let the world outside, with its frantic advertisements for happiness and its cheap plastic promises, fade into the hum it deserves. What I have to tell you is not for the marketplace. It is a secret for the solitary hours, a ghost story for the man who suspects his own house is haunted. It begins not with a bang, but with a whisper of recognition. You meet her, and in her eyes, you see something you thought no one else ever could. You see your wound, the sacred wound, that small, tender place of inadequacy you've carried since boyhood. Perhaps it was a father's silence, a schoolyard humiliation, a dream that died gasping on the pavement of reality. It is your secret engine, the grit in your oyster that you hope will one day make a pearl. You have hidden it from everyone, polished it in private, bled for it. And then she sees it. She doesn't recoil. She doesn't mock. She leans in, her voice like honey and smoke, and she whispers, "I see your pain. Let me hold it for you." And there, in that moment, the bars of the most beautiful cage you will ever know are forged. This is the first, and perhaps the cruelest, of the invisible strings. It is not a rope of aggression, but a thread of sympathy, woven from the finest silk of feminine intuition. She becomes the self-appointed Vestal Virgin at the temple of your damage. Her purpose, she claims, is to tend the flame, to soothe the ache, to be the sanctuary where your battered soul can finally rest. It's a lie, a gorgeous, intoxicating, soul-destroying lie. Because a healer who succeeds works herself out of a job. A sanctuary that truly saves you makes itself obsolete. Her power, her very identity in the dynamic, is predicated not on healing the wound, but on managing it. She becomes its curator, its high priestess, the warden of your pain. Think of the old folk tales, the ones they don't tell children anymore. There's a story, whispered in the Carpathian Mountains, of a limping king who ruled a barren kingdom. His limp came from an old battle, a source of shame and strength. One day, a woman arrived from the mists, a weaver with fingers like moonlight. She promised to mend the king's ceremonial cloak, which was tattered and torn, just like his leg. Every night, she would work by candlelight, her needle flashing, and every morning the cloak would look more magnificent. But the king noticed something strange. His leg ached more. His limp grew worse. One night, he feigned sleep and watched her. He saw that for every golden thread she wove into the cloak's pattern, she would first unravel one small, crucial stitch from the brace hidden beneath his trousers, a single thread supporting the muscle. She was not mending his cloak. She was perpetuating his limp, ensuring the limping king would always need a weaver to make him look royal. She keeps your wound open with the gentlest of touches. When you have a moment of genuine strength, a day where the wound doesn't ache, she will look at you with a flicker of, is it disappointment? She will say something like, "Be careful, my love. Don't push yourself too hard." A reminder, a gentle tug on the leash. When you speak of a future where you are whole, where you have conquered your demons, she will smile a sad, beautiful smile and say, "But I love your demons. They are a part of you." What she means is, they are the part of you that needs me. This is not conscious malice. Oh no, that would be too simple, too clean. It is a deeper, more terrifying instinct, a form of psychic vampirism dressed as devotion. Erich Fromm spoke of this in his later, darker lectures, this symbiotic union where two people feed on each other's incompleteness. He saw it not as love, but as a shared pathology, a pact of mutual self-deception. She needs to be the healer, the savior, the indispensable woman. And to be that, she needs you to remain, in some essential way, broken. The modern world, bless its hollow heart, has even managed to pathologize this and sell it back to us. Recent studies, from late 2024 I believe, out of some university trying to make a name for itself, talk about affective dependency and the protective restrictive paradigms in modern relationships. They use sterile language to describe a gothic horror. They miss the scent of her perfume on your pillow, the scent you associate with both safety and suffocation. They miss the chilling music of her praise, which always seems to celebrate your weakness as a form of poetic sensitivity. "You're so beautifully broken," she'll sigh. And you will feel for a moment like a tragic hero in a grand opera, not a prisoner rattling his cage. Schopenhauer would have laughed his bitter, knowing laugh. He saw the will to life using romantic love as its ultimate trick, a biological imperative masquerading as poetry. But this is a stranger trick. This isn't for the species. This is for the ego, her ego. So she polishes your chains and calls it jewelry. She decorates your cell and calls it a home. She kisses your wound every night, not with antiseptic, but with a sweet, cloying poison that keeps the infection alive, just barely. A low-grade fever becomes your new normal. You forget what it feels like to have a healthy temperature. You mistake the fever chills for passion, the delirium for depth. And the most grotesque part? You become grateful for the cage. The world outside seems so cold, so demanding. It wants you to be strong, to be whole. In here, with her, your brokenness is not just accepted, it is cherished. It is the price of admission. It is your most valuable possession. So I ask you, you who are listening in the dark, with the rain tapping at your window like a nervous ghost, take a hard, honest look at the hands that tend to your deepest insecurities. Is she your healer, or is she the beautiful, smiling curator of your pain museum? She mirrors your aspirations to trap your becoming. They say that love is seeing yourself reflected in another's eyes. A comforting thought, isn't it? Like gazing into a still pond and finding your own image gazing back, serene and familiar. But what if the pond is not still? What if she ripples the surface, distorts the reflection, shows you not who you are, but who you desperately want to be? This is the second invisible string, woven from the very fabric of your ambitions. She doesn't latch onto your weaknesses this time. Instead, she embraces your dreams, your nascent potential, the half-formed masterpiece you carry within you. She becomes your most fervent admirer, your unwavering believer, the wind beneath your fragile wings. You speak of writing that novel, of starting that business, of finally learning that forgotten language. Her eyes light up. "Yes," she'll exclaim, her enthusiasm a potent drug. "You're so talented. The world needs to see this." Oh, she becomes your muse, your cheerleader, the living embodiment of your ideal self reflected back at you. It feels like liberation. Finally, someone understands your potential, sees the greatness you always suspected was lurking within. The world has doubted you, dismissed you, but she knows. But consider this. A mirror only reflects what is already there. It cannot create. It cannot imbue you with talent you do not possess, nor can it will your dreams into existence. Her fervent belief, untethered to the hard, often brutal reality of creation, becomes a gilded cage for your becoming. Think of the old Japanese legend of the fox spirit, the kitsune, who could shapeshift into beautiful women. One particular kitsune fell in love with a young artist, praising his sketches, his clumsy sculptures, his half-finished canvases with an almost religious fervor. He was flattered, invigorated. He worked tirelessly, fueled by her adoration. His studio became their sanctuary, filled with the scent of ink and clay and her breathless compliments. Years passed. His studio grew dusty. His canvases remained unfinished. One day, another artist passing by saw his work. "These are derivative," he said gently. "They lack a certain spirit." The young artist, stung, confronted the kitsune. Her beautiful face twisted into a mask of cold indifference. "But they were perfect, for the reflection I needed," she hissed before vanishing like morning mist, leaving behind only the faint scent of cherry blossoms and the artist's crushing realization. She had loved not his art, but the idea of his art, the reflection it cast upon her image of herself as a connoisseur of genius. She falls in love not with the messy, frustrating process of your growth, but with the fantasy of your realized potential. She loves the idea of being with the man who wrote the great novel, not the man hunched over a keyboard at 3 a.m., wrestling with self-doubt and lukewarm coffee. She adores the vision of you leading that successful company, not the anxious, sleep-deprived man navigating spreadsheets and payroll. So she keeps you in a perpetual state of almost becoming. The dream is always shimmering just out of reach, fueled by her unwavering and ultimately superficial belief. You become afraid to fail, because to fail would be to shatter the perfect image she holds of you, and by extension, the perfect image she holds of herself as the woman who saw your greatness all along. This creates a subtle, insidious pressure. You find yourself performing the idea of progress rather than actually progressing. You talk more about the novel than you write it. You spend more time planning the business than building it. The fear of disappointing her becomes a greater motivator than the intrinsic joy of creation itself. Kierkegaard, in his labyrinthine explorations of despair, spoke of the sickness unto death, the despair of not wanting to be oneself. But here, there is a different kind of despair, the despair of being trapped in the gilded cage of someone else's expectations of who you might become. You lose sight of your own authentic desires, your own stumbling, imperfect path, because the reflection in her eyes is too perfect, too alluring. Think of the modern phenomenon of the power couple, endlessly projecting an image of success and effortless achievement on social media. How much of that is genuine creation and how much is carefully curated performance for an audience of one another? Who are they without the filters, without the carefully constructed narrative of shared ambition? The recent surge in studies on performance anxiety in creative fields, 2023, a particularly grim study out of Berlin, I recall, hints at this very phenomenon. The crippling fear of not living up to an idealized image, often fostered by external validation, can stifle creativity more effectively than outright criticism. The praise becomes a silken noose. So I ask you now, you who are chasing dreams with a shadow at your heels, does her belief in you feel like a liberation or a beautiful, well-disguised form of paralysis? Are you striving for your own sake or for the sake of maintaining a flawless reflection in her eyes? She binds you with the chains of mutual victimhood. Misery loves company. A cliché? Yes, but like many clichés, it holds a shard of uncomfortable truth, especially when that company offers not solace, but a perverse form of validation. This is the third invisible string, woven from the shared threads of complaint and grievance. She doesn't appeal to your wounds or your dreams this time. Instead, she offers you the comforting, if ultimately stagnant, waters of mutual victimhood. The world is a harsh place. It throws stones, deals unfair blows, and often leaves us feeling bruised and misunderstood. It is natural to seek out someone who understands our struggles, who can commiserate with our frustrations, who will stand beside us against the perceived injustices of life. And she is there, always ready with a tale of her own woes, a litany of disappointments, a catalogue of betrayals. Her boss is unreasonable, her family unsupportive, the world at large blind to her brilliance. You, in turn, share your own grievances, the unfair criticism at work, the friend who let you down, the general feeling that you are somehow swimming upstream in a world that favors the shallow and the loud. In these shared complaints, a strange kind of intimacy blossoms. It feels like solidarity, a bonding over shared adversity. You are not alone in your suffering, she understands. You become each other's alibis for inaction, for mediocrity, for a life unlived to its fullest potential. It's not our fault. The unspoken agreement hums in the air between you. The world is against us. Think of the old Breton myth of the weeping willows that grew along the shores of a cursed lake. Legend had it that the trees were once lovers, their hearts broken by a cruel fate. Now, their branches wept eternally, their leaves whispering tales of their shared sorrow to anyone who would listen. Couples would come to the lake, seeking solace in the willow's grief, sharing their own misfortunes beneath their weeping boughs. But those who stayed too long found themselves becoming like the willows, rooted in their sorrow, unable to move on, their own tears mingling with the lake's dark waters. She mirrors your frustrations, amplifies your resentments. When you speak of a setback, she recounts a greater one. When you feel slighted, she shares a story of outright betrayal. The conversation becomes a competition of suffering, a perverse dance where the goal is not to find solutions, but to validate each other's victimhood. "Of course, you didn't get the promotion," she'll say, her voice laced with a familiar indignation. "They never appreciate talent like yours." And in that moment, your own disappointment is validated, but so is your inertia. The blame lies outside of you, safely beyond your control. This creates a comfortable stagnation. If the world is against both of you, then neither of you is truly responsible for your own lack of progress. The shared suffering becomes a shield against self-reflection, a justification for remaining in your comfort zone, however unsatisfying it may be. Nietzsche, with his sharp, unforgiving gaze on human weakness, would have seen this as a form of resentment, a festering resentment that cripples the will. He warned against the seductive power of shared victimhood, how it can bind people together in a mutual hatred of the other, preventing them from taking responsibility for their own lives. Consider the proliferation of online communities built around shared grievances, the echo chambers of outrage and victimhood that dominate social media. While these spaces can offer temporary validation, they often trap individuals in a cycle of negativity, reinforcing their sense of powerlessness. The shared anger becomes a substitute for genuine action, a digital weeping willow by a virtual cursed lake. Recent sociological studies, a particularly unsettling one from Oxford in early 2025, focusing on the correlation between online grievance communities and decreased civic engagement, paint a stark picture of this phenomenon. The more time individuals spend validating their victimhood with others, the less likely they are to take concrete steps to change their circumstances. The alibi of shared suffering becomes a cage built of resentment and inertia. So I ask you, you who find solace in shared complaints, is this bond built on genuine understanding or on a mutual agreement to remain perpetually bruised by the world? Are you finding comfort or simply a convenient excuse for staying still? She keeps the future shimmering just beyond your grasp, forever delaying the present. Hope is a powerful thing. It can sustain us through the darkest of times, the promise of a brighter future, a beacon in the night. But what happens when that beacon is perpetually receding? When the horizon of possibility remains forever just beyond your grasp? This is the fourth invisible string, woven from the shimmering fabric of unfulfilled tomorrows. She doesn't dwell on your past wounds or your present grievances. Instead, she paints breathtaking pictures of a future that never quite arrives. She speaks of the trips you will take, the house you will buy, the life you will build together someday. These visions are vivid, intoxicating, filled with the golden light of imagined happiness. You plan, you dream, you almost taste the sweetness of these future joys. The present, with its mundane realities and its inevitable frustrations, becomes bearable because of the glorious tomorrow that awaits. It feels like optimism, like a shared journey towards a beautiful destination. But consider this. A journey with no destination is just wandering. And a dream that never materializes is just a pleasant distraction from the life you are actually living. Think of the old Persian tale of the donkey and the carrot. A hungry donkey was tied to a cart, with a carrot dangled just out of reach, tied to a stick attached to the cart itself. The donkey walked and walked, always striving for the carrot, but never quite reaching it. The carrot kept the donkey moving, kept it working, but it never satisfied its hunger. She keeps the carrot of future happiness dangling just beyond your grasp. There is always a reason why the dream cannot be realized now. There is always one more obstacle to overcome, one more thing to save for, one more perfect moment to wait for. The present becomes a perpetual state of preparation, a rehearsal for a life that never begins. "We'll travel the world," she'll say, her eyes sparkling with the vision. "But first, we need to save a little more." Years pass, and the savings account grows, but so do the reasons for postponing the trip. A new car, a home renovation, an unexpected expense. The horizon of adventure recedes further into the distance. This creates a subtle form of paralysis in the present. Why invest fully in today when tomorrow holds such dazzling promise? Why confront the difficulties of now when the future will surely be easier, brighter? You become trapped in a state of perpetual anticipation, never fully engaging with the life unfolding around you. The existential philosophers, especially Camus, wrestled with the absurdity of the human condition, the constant striving for meaning in a meaningless universe. But this is a different kind of absurdity. The self-imposed absurdity of perpetually postponing meaning, of sacrificing the present for a future that remains a tantalizing mirage. Consider the modern obsession with future-proofing our lives, the constant anxiety about what might happen, the endless accumulation of possessions and plans for a hypothetical tomorrow. How much of this is genuine foresight, and how much is a way of avoiding the messy, unpredictable reality of the present moment? Recent research in behavioral economics, a particularly insightful study from Stanford in late 2023 on the psychology of postponement, highlights our tendency to prioritize future rewards over immediate gratification, even when those future rewards are uncertain or indefinitely delayed. This natural human tendency can be exploited to keep us in a state of perpetual waiting, forever chasing a horizon that never gets closer. So I ask you, you who are living for a future that never seems to arrive, is this shared vision a source of genuine hope or a beautiful distraction from the life you are neglecting today? Are you building a future together, or simply using the idea of a future to avoid confronting the imperfections of your present? She offers affection as a reward for your continued need. After the wounds are tended but never healed, after the dreams are mirrored but never realized, after the grievances are shared but never resolved, after the future is promised but never delivered, there remains one final, perhaps the most potent of the invisible strings. This is the string of conditional love, woven from the very essence of your human need for connection and affection. She offers you a sanctuary, a haven from the storm of the world, but the price of admission is your continued dependence. Her love is not a constant, unwavering light. It flickers, it dims, it brightens again, always in response to your perceived need for her. When you are weak, when you are lost, when you are uncertain, her affection flows freely, a comforting balm to your wounded ego. She is your rock, your anchor, the one who believes in you when you doubt yourself. But when you show signs of strength, of independence, of a desire to step outside the carefully constructed world you have built together, the warmth recedes. A subtle coolness enters her voice. A shadow crosses her eyes. You sense a withdrawal, a subtle punishment for daring to need her less. It feels like love, because in those moments of vulnerability, her affection is undeniably real, undeniably comforting. But consider this, a love that requires your weakness for its sustenance is not love at all. It is a form of control, a subtle manipulation disguised as compassion. Think of the ancient Greek myth of the lotus eaters. Odysseus's men, weary from their travels, land on an island where they are offered the lotus flower to eat. The lotus has a magical effect. it makes them forget their homes and their desire to return, content to remain in a state of blissful indolence on the island. The island offers a kind of paradise, but it is a paradise built on forgetfulness, on the suppression of their true desires and their responsibilities. She offers you a similar kind of sanctuary, a place where your weaknesses are indulged, your dependencies nurtured. But it comes at a cost. The cost of your own growth, your own autonomy, your own ability to navigate the world without her constant watchful presence. "I just worry about you," she'll say, her brow furrowed with concern when you speak of pursuing a new passion or spending time with friends outside your shared circle. You need to take care of yourself. And in that moment, her concern feels genuine. But it also serves to subtly undermine your confidence, to reinforce the idea that you are somehow incapable of thriving without her protection. This creates a deep-seated fear of independence. You become afraid to step outside the boundaries of the relationship, not because you don't want to, but because you fear the withdrawal of her affection, the loss of your sanctuary. The conditional nature of her love becomes the ultimate prison. The wisdom of the Stoics, particularly Seneca, emphasize the importance of inner resilience, of finding strength within oneself rather than relying on external validation. They warned against the fragility of happiness built on the shifting sands of others' opinions and affections. This conditional love is the antithesis of Stoic philosophy. It actively cultivates dependence as a means of maintaining control. Consider the modern anxieties surrounding codependency in relationships, the intricate dance of need and caretaking that can trap individuals in unhealthy patterns. While there is often a genuine desire to support a partner, codependent behavior often stems from an unconscious need to be needed, to derive one's sense of worth from the other's dependence. Recent studies in attachment theory, a particularly nuanced study from Berkeley in early 2025, explored the long-term effects of inconsistent parental affection on adult relationships, shed light on the deep-seated need for secure attachment and how inconsistent or conditional affection in adult relationships can trigger primal fears of abandonment, leading individuals to cling to unhealthy dynamics for fear of being alone. But here, in the quiet solitude you may have begun to cultivate, a different kind of strength begins to bloom. The realization that true sanctuary lies not in the arms of another, but within your own being. The understanding that the flickering flame of conditional love cannot illuminate the path to true liberation. The strange liberation comes not from finding someone who completes you, but from accepting your own beautiful, flawed incompleteness. It comes not from chasing the ever-receding horizon of future happiness, but from finding joy and meaning in the imperfect present. It comes not from seeking solace in shared victimhood, but from taking responsibility for your own journey, stumbles and all. And it comes, finally, from understanding that the deepest wound can only be healed by your own hand, with the quiet strength found in solitude. So, I ask you, you who have felt the warmth of her affection only when you were willing to remain in need, are you ready to step out of the sanctuary of conditional love and into the bracing air of your own self-reliance? Are you ready to embrace the profound and terrifying freedom of being truly alone, truly yourself?